Hello everyone, my name is Kylan Briscoe and I am doing my presentation for class today on Pierre de Fermat. He is the mathematician that I chose with the help of our professor who dabbled a little bit in some of the work that we will be covering in class, more particularly in calculus and a bit on number theory. As we continue, this is a photo of Pierre de Fermat in the time in which he lived. There were not really any photos that were being taken at that time. So in turn, most of the portraits of people from this time period were done as sketches by artists. So for Pierre de Fermat, we have a couple of sketches. I only included one in this because I felt like it represented him in the best way of how he looked, and this photo being a good representation of more about who he was. As we continue on, he did live near Toulouse, France, during the 17th century. This was overall a time of big change for France. In this time period, France was going from being under the control of England to going and being really its own country. So that really allowed us to have a good understanding of where they were as far as like time period was. Along with this being said, the change in France, it had a lot of just effects on like the culture, but not necessarily on the life of Pierre. He was born in the year 1601 and passed in the year of 1665, and he was 63 when he passed. His parents were Basque leather merchants. They sent him to school. He was fortunate enough to attend a good school where he fell in love with 3 different aspects of society and school and life, and those were math, science, and language. Other than this, and the fact that he was married and did have a few children, there is very little known about other aspects of his life. He seemed to be a pretty private person as far as all of that went, and overall, these were just the couple of things that I was able to gather based on all the research that I did and the sources that I was able to find that really tried to go over his life in as much detail as possible. So with that being said, of him liking math, science, and language, he did become a lawyer, and that was his main aspect and job title in life. He was mainly a lawyer, as well as a husband and a father, but in his spare time, he did math, and that is where he developed some of his theories that we still use today and that we were able to continuously branch off of. So with that being said, of having him only doing math and being a well-respected mathematician, he really didn't do it very often. He did it in his spare time, but he was able to publish a few theories, and overall he was very successful with those theories. One theory that was discussed a little more in detail, which of describing his life and some of his work, was one with the equation of xn plus yn equals zn. And in this, and in his theory, he discussed that n was never greater than 2. What this means is that any aspect below 2, I know I only put n is less than 2, but it should be n is less than or equal to 2 on the presentation. That is my bad. But with this being said, during that time in which he was trying to ensure that his theory would withhold and asking for help from others to ensure that, like, making sure the theory was correct, they found that with the number theory that he was using, for them to be able to branch off and create other theories based on the basic work that he had done during the 1600s. One of the main points that I found very interesting during my research was that work that was unknown in his time, because we've just continued to develop upon it, his initial theory was still being used in work in the 20th century. The initial theories that he came up with, especially including number theory and different aspects of calculus, are still being used within the last 100 years to continue developing more theories. With this being said, I do say that we do use his work in our class. Also, I wouldn't have been able to choose him as the mathematician if it wasn't, but we are using his work throughout different aspects of the class, especially when you think of all the basics that he was able to accomplish that led to different aspects. All of the sources that I used, I only used 4, but they all came from the MJC databases from our school library website. There was not a whole lot even just on him and his life, but these 4 went into detail about different aspects of him and of his life to get the presentation and the research done the way I did it, and overall have more of just like a general aspect of understanding the aspects of his life and of the culture that he grew up in and the time that he was alive. And then just to wrap up the presentation, once again, his name was Pierre de Fermat, and he was a mathematician that I was able to study for this presentation. I hope you all learned something and have a great rest of your day.